So I'm going to be doing the first round of testing for a DSI. I haven't quite gotten to which one I want to do yet. These will be important later. These two consoles I have off to my left, I just got done running them through a battery test, so I need to document what their time was. There's a specific app I run on an R4 card that, from what I understand, simulates gameplay, and it keeps track of how long the console stays on. It's good for me because I can just let it run all night, or just set it and forget it. Pencil. Ah, there it is. Bronze console ran for 3 hours 55 minutes. This is console WW442476360. Green, I think, is a PAL console. Check that in a second. Battery is 4 hours and 5 minutes. Oh, it's Japanese, yeah. Right, because the menu was in Japanese. The green JPN. WJF 118898667. I'm just filling out these little slips of paper that I keep with the consoles that I'll just have notes on. It's just a lot easier and more portable. So I wanted to look into this console specifically. One of my consoles had a very strange discharge cycle when I was running a battery test. And I noticed when I was charging this console up, it does that. So I need to see why it's doing that. What was I doing? Oh yeah, I was grabbing the R4 card out of my green console. Okay. So this is a blinking orange charge light, but the strange characteristic about it is it charges up solid. So a solid orange light. And then when it was full, it just starts blinking. And I'm not entirely sure why. It could be that it's all related to the battery. This battery is just going bad, which is perfectly reasonable thing to assume. Batteries are fairly consumable, even rechargeable ones. The fact that some of these are lasting as long as they are is pretty incredible. There's nothing cosmetically wrong with this battery. It's not even bloated at all. So what I want to do, just a little side thing, I'm going to take off this water damage indicator because when I clean these consoles, I submerge the shells in water, which, well, trips those water damage indicator. Don't think Nintendo cares. So what I'm going to do is, I suspect the battery is faulty. So I'm going to grab another console. This white one, which I haven't gotten a back plate for, or a battery cover. Put the battery in. And I'll just leave that for a minute. But it looks like it's charging up. Let me see if it's actually drawing anything. Currently stable. I have a USB tester right here, so it's going to unplug it. .5 of an amp. Yeah. And then just for kicks and giggles, I guess I'll put the white battery into this blue console. Just see if it does the same thing. So that was expected behavior if the battery was full. Orange light would just turn off. It's interesting that this blue one is, or the battery from the blue console is still charging. Let me just try it again. So now it is behaving normally. Let me grab a new battery. Well, not new, but a different battery. This is what I would consider an unassigned battery. It's just one I have in a pile. So this is for the white console. I need to kind of leave that over there. So I'm assuming this battery is not fully charged. The ones in my pile usually aren't. Interesting. I'll keep grabbing more batteries. I have 4 right here. Let me grab the actual meter so I can see what the console's doing. The battery in this white console that was from the blue console seems to be doing fine. So grab another battery. It really isn't drawing that much. 0.06 of an amp. So it's charging incredibly slow. This is directly compared to the console beneath it, which will charge at 0.5 of an amp. Oh, this one might just have a bad charge port. Yeah, 0.5 in an amp. And I'll adjust that later when I get to that console. So this is interesting. So this is sort of a console quirk. Let me try another battery. Okay. I'm very doubtful. I doubt that these batteries are full. It's not impossible, but a lot of those batteries have been sitting in there for quite a while. There, and this one's flashing. This is very odd. So this is from the blue console. I'm just going to put it right there. I'm going to check this battery that was flashing. And I'm not exactly sure how this charging cycle works, but I know it will sometimes go up higher. Sometimes it sits low. It's never below 0.1 of an amp, though. So for this blue console to be charging so slow. So I can't say if this is exactly a problem. It's obviously something related to the battery, but as far as I can tell, and yeah, me tapping it, it's going off and on. I'm guessing that's just a solder joint is broken. When I get around to testing this console, I'll reflow it. So let me put the white battery back in it and put it back aside. I don't need it. And I can look into why this blue console is behaving strange. So it's charging and it turns on. I know this because it'd help if I had the battery in. I know this because I ran a battery test on it, but I don't exactly think that that is legitimate. Just something about, like, when it was discharging, it changed over to the red light much quicker than any of my other consoles. Like, it felt like within less than an hour it turned red. Which, that does not make sense if it's a battery test of over 3 hours. So now when it comes to the charging circuit, this is where things get a little uncertain. I don't know exactly how to test this. This could be I swap the motherboards and just put it aside as like a weird case for me to look into later when I hopefully have a better understanding of the circuit board. There are schematics I can look up for the DSI itself, and I am under the assumption that most of those circuits are the same. Here it is. So I'm looking specifically in this area. What I could do is try just reflowing EM1, which I think is like an inducer of some sort. I will just do some random continuity probing. It does charge. Let me grab my microscope and just look at it. Look at it a little closer. See if anything jumps out. This USB microscope has been very good to me, but I really definitely need to look into getting something a little more robust. Stereo microscope is kind of the way to go. Something on a boom arm I could just drag over would be great. Let me make this a little bigger. Not that. Oh, because I locked it. I got you. There we go. So I'm kind of looking around up here. I am suspecting EM1 right here. It's not really behaving like those solder joints are cracked. Especially not like the low power draw. Almost kind of looks like some of that solder mask is sort of eaten away. Hang on. No. And then there's component U11, which is kind of, I understand this as more the brains of the operation. I wonder what that is. Almost looks like a bridge. What is that? It's like a solder ball or something. What is that? It's like coming apart. I wonder if it was like a bug or something. Huh. Nothing is striking me as unusual. The fuse is obviously fine. I could maybe put a little more solder on it. Another thing I wanted to check, and I know a lot of this, like this big chip right here is for the, this is the Samsung chip, never mind. It's this guy right here, it's power management. It's charging and it's turning on, but it's just charging very erratically. So I don't think it's this power management chip. I feel like I'd be having a lot more dramatic problems. What I also want to check is this power daughter board. Check the ribbon cable. Because the ground, or part of the charging circuit grounds on the power daughter board. One of these traces go over to the ground plane of this board. Some type of like, I don't remember the term for it, but just a sort of like a voltage check or something. Or it's a way for the circuit to ground on the same board that the battery's on. I'm no electrical engineer, so how exactly that rationalizes, I'm not entirely sure, but all I know is that from what I could test, this console will not charge without the battery daughter board ribbon cable connected. I also dropped one of those tiny power board screws. Perfect. Here it is. Heat dropping screws that get launched to the kingdom come. So I know the charging circuit needs this ribbon cable in order to function. So could be a power board related issue. I kind of doubt it, but power board is out. I just kind of want to look it over under the microscope as well. See if there's anything strange. this little guy right here, the 10k ohm resistor. I guess I can check it. Tiny little guy. What I could do actually is just go from this test point to ground. 9.36. Okay, yeah, it's fine. Let me check the ribbon cable. The ribbon cable having a bend makes it a little hard to flatten out. Yeah, that looks fine. So does that one. Just sort of looking at these main solder points for the battery. They look solid. So let's just kind of get going with these consumable parts. Let me swap out the power board and see how it behaves. Switch off my microscope for now. So here's a different power board that should be fine. I can't verify that it's fine, but it came from a clean console, it looks like, and these power boards are pretty simple. There's no main ICs on them. I think other than that resistor and a fuse, pretty much all that's on it. The bank of LCDs for the lights and the buttons, of course. Okay. Same battery from before. So now it's blinking at me, but what's weird is it sort of draws for a second and then stops. So there's something wrong with the charge circuit. Yeah, we're getting a little bit out of my depth here. I can do some random continuity probing. I can try and probe the ground from the component U11. How I was saying that there's a trace on U11 that will go to the power board ground. I think I put this ribbon cable on backwards. I can check to at least make sure that's intact. I don't remember which leg it was, but it'll be the only one that beeps. That's curious. I didn't know the console grounded on the power board as well. Thought it was more of an isolated circuit. It was the 4th pin over, so 1, 2, 3, 4. It should be this guy. I think. I wonder if I'm testing the right ground. Test point 1. It's going to be a little difficult. It's possible it's a smaller ground. That's odd. No, there we go. Not chirping at me at test point 1. So I wonder what... I thought I tracked this line pretty well, all the way up to U11. I think because it goes through another resistor. Oh, that might be it. Okay, then I need to go right here. I think it was this side of the resistor that I check. The other side? Huh. Oh, there we go. So then it's from this side of the resistor. And I thought it was pin 4, which I thought was right here. Okay, it's that last leg. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, pin 10. So that line is good. Really the only thing I can think of doing is I want to reflow EM1. I don't need to check the fuse because it does pull. I could probably put more solder on it. So that's the only thing I really know how to do. If it's a faulty component, I really don't have the knowledge of how to identify which one is bad. Let me get everything up. I'm not going to take the board out. I will loosen these ribbon cables, pop them out so they're out of my way. Place a guitar pick under my working area so I don't melt the shell with my iron. Get that ribbon cable underneath there without hopefully not bending it. Because I know very often, because these charge ports experience mechanical stress, kind of like with that white console from earlier, is the charging will be very intermittent because just these solder joints just crack. because I don't know, maybe just dropping the console when the charger is in and it just snaps the solder joints on the boards. I'm gonna actually grab my microscope for this. I just kind of noticed there's not really much solder on that fuse. It's not bad. It probably works just fine. Obviously, the console does charge, just not very well. I just wanted to add a little bit of solder to everything. Gotta be a little careful around this connector. Rotate it so I'm not reaching over it. Yeah, it looks a little better. At least I can see the solder on the joints. And then EM1. Now I'm not sure about that crap that was underneath U11. Whatever that like crusty stuff was. Not gonna worry about it. I don't think that would cause a problem. I have my iron out and I'll just check anything. Okay. Just gonna wipe everything down with a Q-tip and some rubbing alcohol. These should be these mounting points for the charge port should be fine. I anticipate those are fairly benign. I might have to look at my notes. No, that seems somewhat normal. I think it was component U11. There was a charging issue I was reading up on where the battery or the console would discharge while it was off. I think a user was saying that one of these two components were just heating up using a flare cam. I don't think it's that bad. I don't think that battery was discharging. A little hard to say. Okay. I don't expect it to be as simple as that, and if that doesn't solve it, I can do a little more probing, but I think I'm just going to swap the motherboard and just add it into a pile of unknown problems. I just don't have the experience to know what it could be without spending a lot of time just it would be just time swapping parts just for the hell of it. Like what happens if I swap over U11 from my junker board that has a presumably good charging circuit. And I'm not entirely interested in doing that right now. Okay. Could have just been as easy as that. Pulling 1 amp. I'm going to let it sit for a second while I get some water to drink. So what do I think the problem was? It's pulling 0.4 amps, which I think is normal. It could have been lack of... It really could have been anything. Just cracks in the solder, cold joints, whatever terminology people use. And simply just reflowing them, adding a little more solder, it looks like that's all it did. That fuse really didn't have much solder on it, but I know coming from the factory, sometimes they don't. Like, let me grab another motherboard. So here's just a random one. I'm going to put this aside. This is an American motherboard. Unmodified. Charge port hasn't been worked on. I have a couple of them where I did replace charge ports. Or worked on the circuits. Sort of to kind of directly compare. There really isn't much solder on the component at fuse F1. But there's enough. Like, you can see it. You can't see, like, the clear outline of the corner or the edges of that fuse. The contact points. Like, even the legs of this joint, or the legs of this charge port, you could almost see the entire leg. Like, there's probably a good connection underneath it. Yeah, but it probably wouldn't take much to break those free. If, like, say, somebody dropped it while the charger was in. It seems sturdy enough, so... But yeah, you can see the little pits of solder on them. And then there's, of course, component E1. So this one looks like it has a crack in it. I understand this to be like a coil of wire, so that might be irrelevant if this is just like a casing. But this video is not about this motherboard, so if this motherboard has issues, then I'll find it out in the future. So, yeah, I've been having this console charge, still 0.4 amps, so solid orange light. So what I'm going to do with this console is I'm going to invalidate the battery test and run it again. It probably was fine. Maybe just the feedback from one of those components. I don't think it was the fuse. It could have been EM1 was what triggered the red light to come on, but I will observe it when I run the battery test again. So now I can actually get to the proper testing. So just to almost restart, this is blue DSi XL, serial number WW442476104. I'm going to put the darn thing back together for one. I'll keep the back cover undone, but I want to put the motherboard and the power board screws back in. just to keep it stable for when I'm pressing buttons. I also had to plug in the shoulder buttons. And random shout out to this random USB tester. It's becoming a lot more usable than I was expecting it would be. Come in handy in testing out these charge circuits. Plug in all of these screws. Probably just... I do usually give these a quick once over when I put these motherboards in. Yeah, just to check the charge port, make sure that little plastic tongue is still good. Game card slot looks good. All that's good. Get the shoulder buttons plugged in. Come on. So the test I'm going to start with is sort of an experimental test to look for image retention on these screens. Now that's a... can't say it's a rather new phenomenon, but the testing protocol is. So really what it is just going to be leaving this console on the DSI sounds. Turn down the volume. Leave it on this application for 2 or so minutes. And if any of the elements transfer over to the settings menu, then that's a fairly good sign that one or both the screens are failing, because it has image retention or whatever the proper term would end up being. It's not burn-in. That's a lot different. That's a phenomenon I don't expect to occur on LCD displays, but something about like the refresh rate of the liquid crystals aren't... I don't know enough to say. But if it does have image retention, that's my indicator that the screens are dying and they just need to be replaced. I'm still looking into it. Of the many consoles I've done, I've only had 2 screens that had like wild image retention. I'll leave it here for just a couple minutes and see what it looks like. Yeah, that's been about 2 minutes, give or take. Yeah, I don't see anything. So what I'm looking for is, since the settings menu is gray background, if any of the, like, on an image retained screen, you would see the checkerboard pattern of the sound app. I have been noticing that you can kind of see like a little bit of like shadowing right here, but I think that's normal. It's definitely not the checkerboard. Like, it is prominent. Like, the best settings app has the sound app overlay, like the setting is overlaid over the sound app. So that looks fine. And then I notice, when this is something I'm still testing, from what I understand is benign, but sometimes when I refresh the display, this top display is doing it. It'll almost show a sign of something. Like this one, top screen's almost showing vignetting, but it isn't. Like, the whole display turns on, but as you're soft resetting it, it sort of darkens those corners where the bottom display is not that. That I'm still looking into. From what I understand, is benign. Could be a sign that the screens are starting to go bad, but I have no evidence to support that. It could just be, you calm down there, multimeter. It could just be a quirk of the console or just age. Okay, so past image retention, I don't see any signs. I have nothing to really worry about there. So with that out of the way, because if any of the displays were retaining an image, I would have to replace them, which would invalidate a lot of my tests I'm about to do. So first, in the following tests are this little bank down here in my assessment form. So motherboard and power board, console turns on, opens up applications. For all intents and purposes, I have nothing to suspect. If the console didn't turn on, it wouldn't be in the first round of testing. And usually I don't test applications right away when I first put these consoles together, but if there was like a Wi-Fi board issue, then I wouldn't be able to open up the sound app or the settings. So that's good. Next is tactile buttons. That's all of the face buttons and the shoulder buttons, which shoulder buttons specifically is why I didn't put the outer shell screws on. So I have an application on my R4 card that will test all the buttons. Well, easily allow me to test the buttons. It itself doesn't test the buttons. That would be kind of neat, but... So what I'm going to do is just sort of press the buttons several times and just kind of see if the lights are lining up with the rhythm of my pressing. Making sure there's no, like, missed presses or anything that strikes me as odd. These face buttons on the motherboard side are usually good, unless there's sort of rampant water damage or corrosion, which those I tend to not use, the motherboards wise. Sometimes the D-pad can have issues because I'm usually pulling those off of, or I'm putting corroded motherboards into my good pile by mistake. Sometimes they slip through, and sometimes I have problems with the D-pad, but this one looks fine. And then the shoulder buttons, which may appear cosmetically fine, but could be bad, like this R button. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to see if I can get anything out of this R button. I'm getting nothing. Interesting that it's R button. Again, this is the second time. L button seems to be fine. I'm gonna press all around the button. The edges kind of closer to the center of the console. And it is getting my clicks every time. So Let me look into this R button. It could have been as easy as it wasn't plugged in. Let me just take it apart and actually probe the points for the button itself. I had a button, I think it was yesterday, that I took apart. Just the entire thing was just corroded away. Which you wouldn't even tell, you couldn't really tell from the outside. Yeah, there was like a spot of rust on the outer shell, like outer casing of the button, but I wouldn't have pegged it as just completely gone. I ended up replacing the button, so that could be at least saved. Yeah, like from the outside, this button looks fine. Test for continuity. Should just be able to sort of jam my negative probe in there, so I don't have to hold it. I'm getting nothing out of that button. I will try cleaning it. I have a little twist cap that I'll fill up with rubbing alcohol. And then submerge, and then just press it a whole bunch. Hopefully to squeeze out all the air and let the rubbing alcohol in, and then just from the mechanical force of pressing the button, if there is a little bit of corrosion on it, it'll clean it away. I wouldn't say this is like a proven guaranteed fix, but usually I would only bet on this fixing it as if the R button was registering, but maybe intermittently. Maybe it was skipping an input here and there, like it's just a little dirty. This, I'm getting nothing out of it, so it's probably this button is just dead. What I might do is actually go get another button from a junk board and just replace it with an OEM one. Instead, because the aftermarket buttons feel different. Like they almost have like a shorter travel to them. And they click, I can't say they click louder than OEM buttons, but they definitely have a distinctness to them. And that might not be something if it's your only DSi, but since I've assembled a lot of these consoles, I can tell quite rather immediately that something's wrong. Well, not wrong, it's just different. I wouldn't even say it's bad, it's just like, huh, it's weird. I'm just not used to it. Okay, it might be a little too wet. Not really giving it time to dry. It is 91%, so it should dry pretty quickly. That's getting absolutely nothing. Okay. I think I'm going to replace it with a junker. So a lot of these are foul. This one looks fine. I wonder why it's in my junk pile. A lot of them will have like rust. There's one type of junker that I'm looking for. And that's one where the ribbon cable is torn. That one's pretty... This one's pretty rusted. This one's really rusted. And these are just like water damaged consoles. Those buttons probably work, like weirdly enough, but with that amount of surface rust, it's just have to replace it. What the heck? Oh, this is one... I think this is one I was like trying to experimentally repair because I didn't have any spares. So I took it apart, I cleaned it, and then I wrapped it in like a thread. I think it works, but obviously I'm not going to do anything with that other than just replace it. Where are they? There's a lot of just rusty buttons. Ooh, this one has some good water damage on the back. Rust. That one, a button's already removed. Huh, I thought I had one. I think I maybe saw that more on the DSi, not so much the XL. But it's just that these ribbon cables, like right there where they're not actually, they don't have a PCB on them, would tear. I must be thinking of the DSi. So let me go grab the volume buttons. So these volume buttons are kind of in the same way where I usually put them in the junk pile when they have rusty buttons. I'm going to try and find one that maybe just has a torn ribbon cable but otherwise has a good button. Oh, here we go. Found a candidate. How these tear, I have no clue. No clue. So let me test it. Make sure it's a good button, because that would be kind of a waste. I might be able to just get the ground off of this panel right here. Make my life a little easier. Trying to manhandle this thing. No, I can't. That's a bummer. Okay. Yep, that button's fine. At least it was checking continuity. Let's take it off. Omnivice is a little too big. I have helping hands. Just when I thought I didn't need my flux. Try and goober out just a little. I'll use my hot air gun at 300 degrees. More than plenty to get these buttons off. Almost. There we go. Get leftover flux off of it and throw it back in the garbage pile. Good thing I had it. I never know what parts I'm gonna need off these. Okay, this board is a little easier to deal with. Grab a little goober of sob flux. A little too lazy to put my syringe on. I think this is my first time transplanting an OEM one. I'm usually putting the aftermarket ones on, so hopefully the OEM ones sit in there. I won't have to try and line them up as much as I usually do. And I'm probably going to pick this button apart for academic curiosity. Ooh, it hopped on me. That was interesting. Trying to see if I could do a smooth transfer, but Okay, I think that may have done it. Let it cool down. This button is garbage. Sort of sitting at a little bit of an angle. That might not be a problem. Before I actually go around the testing it, I'll test fit it in the shell really quick. Just to make sure it's lined up. On the aftermarket ones, I really have to pay attention to how they line up. But on these OEM ones, they have little legs that go through the holes in the PCB to hopefully line them up, but it's entirely possible that the volume button and the SD card slot board are incompatible. That wouldn't really make much sense. The PCBs kind of look the same, at least up where the shoulder button is, and it wouldn't make sense for them to use two different types of shoulder buttons for the same console. That'd be way too much money on something stupid. I do have to touch up some of that solder. I see one of the ground legs aren't really sitting in there that well. Let me just test fit it. Yeah, it's in there just fine. Yep, and it clicks. I can kind of hear a little bit of the flux in there, so what I'm going to do is not flush it out yet. I need to touch up the solder on it real quick. Just looking at it, I think the outer ground pad and the actual like positive contact for the button are making good or have a good solder joint, but the second ground pad, which I believe a circuit line runs to or a trace line runs to, is not on there real good. Probably is fine, but never hurts to be a little extra careful and add a little more solder. There we go. That will do it. And I'll clean the button. Not dump my rubbing alcohol everywhere. Oh no. Okay, I think that's good. Battery or the button tester will tell me. So while I wait for that to dry, I'm going to indulge in some curiosity and tear apart this button. I have my microscope set up, so I might as well use it. Here it is. Other than maybe sticky from flux. Like, from the outside, it looks fine. And on the back, it looks fine. Let's kind of get it pried open. Gotta pull back these little metal legs. This is usually fairly destructive for the button. You could probably put it back together, but why? They're not worth it if they're this bad, unless you're really desperate. Okay. Then with this metal piece off, we have the little rubber nipple. It just comes off, and then the actual clicky part of the button, the little tiny, like, dome that actually makes the clicking sound and bridges the contact points between a center point and an outer, like, ground plane. I'll try and get this off with a sewing needle. Holy shit. That went to Kingdom Come. I think I heard it. See if I can find it. Oh, well, I don't want this here. A random screw cover that I wanted to get rid of. Holy moly. My setup that I have here is not really conducive of a lost piece. Should stick out, I think. Yeah, I don't know where it went. Oh, God. Maybe it would be up here with all of my random PS4 screws. That sort of endless project. Probably won't work out in my favor, but by golly, I'll try. Well, yeah, I don't know where that went. We can at least look inside the contacts, which unfortunately look fine. So that little button, what it's supposed to do is bridge that center contact to the outer contacts when you press the button. And if I could find it, I'm guessing the underside of it is just eaten away with corrosion. Only the Lord knows where that little bastard went. Because I have the other button is right here. The other one I pried open to try and, or for sake of pure academic curiosity, which I suppose I could pry it apart. I tried cleaning it to see if I could get it back to life, but nah, it didn't do anything. Yeah, I did try clamping it together and it didn't really work out too well. Hopefully I don't launch this one. So I'm guessing that other dome would look about on par, as if not worse than this, where I did scratch away a lot of it, but it probably scratched away whatever conductive material was on this piece, rendering it useless. But it was just basically black. Anywho, I can get back to testing. That over there. So now we can get this console back together. Button should be plenty dry by now. Fits right in perfectly. And clicks. Missing a step. There we go. Still feels good. Just kind of giving it a field test. Let me put the outer shell screws back in. At least the ones around the R button. Oh, wrong, right. Oh, I'll just put them all in. Why not? Hopefully I won't have to take this console apart again. At least for this initial round of testing. So I'll just put everything in. I will be taking apart when I do my final testing protocol to put tape on the ribbon cable connectors. Yep, R button's still good. So let's get back into my R4 card. And see if that replacement button worked, hopefully. If not, I'll just replace the ribbon cable, or that whole shoulder button. Right, I did all the face buttons, so it should all be the same. L button's still good. And our replacement R button looks to be good as well. Yep. Next is the touch screen, which this is an OEM touchscreen, which has its goods and its bads. Usually the touchscreen will have scratches on it if it's OEM. But the OEM ones always perform the best. They have a good coating on them, so they actually feel good to drag a stylus across without a screen protector. The third-party ones that I've at least used all have this weird finish on it that just makes it a pain to drag a stylus across. Oops. I have another application that basically just turns the bottom screen into a big sketch pad. You could do this on Flipnote too, but it leaves that little icon on the bottom left corner, which I don't necessarily like. So what I'll do is drag across my corners and look for any erroneous inputs. Usually if one of these touchscreens are starting to fail, you'll be dragging along the perimeter and they'll just be this big blob. And none of the touch inputs will register there. I've had touchscreens that I'll drag along and then it'll fire an input somewhere over here, even though I'm dragging along the edge. So obviously those just need to be replaced. There's no fix that I'm aware of. And replacement digitizers are pretty cheap, just a couple dollars. And if you do get a third-party one, the only thing I recommend is just getting a screen protector, because the screen protector will add that sort of like glossy, smooth feeling back to the touchscreen. But yeah, you can see all of my inputs were working, so. Next is speaker, microphone, and headphone jack, which I combo that test with a test of the SD card slot, because I have a song that I play. So, watching the little indicator on the top of the screen, goes up when I turn up, goes down when I turn down. Both speakers are producing sound. I do test the microphone before I put this top screen together, so if I had a problem with the microphone, I don't have to take the whole console back apart just to restring in a new microphone, because that's a pain in the ass. So what I can do is just record just a quick little ditty. La 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 la. La la la. Yep, that worked just fine. And it's reading my SD card. So let me grab a set of earbuds. Make sure that the song will be playing from both channels. So now I know all of the speakers, or all the sound systems work, as well as the SD card. Let me take out the SD card so I don't leave it in there and wonder where the hell it went. Next is the cameras, which, similar to the microphone, I check before I install them, just so that if I did have a problem with the camera unit, I don't have to take the console apart. They both work fine. Next is charge port, which I put work into. So better work. So I'm going to be looking for a couple things. First, grabbing the charge end and putting it in normally. Charge light's orange, solid. I am drawing about 0.1 of an amp. Then what I'll do is I'll jiggle it, or I'll sort of like rotate it in a circle, and see if that charge light goes off. Similar to that white console quite a while back, where I was touching that charge cable and the light was blinking off and on. So I'm guessing that is just bad solder joints, which that is easy enough to do. Reflow them, add a little more solder, and it brings it back to life. Pulling, orange light didn't go off. So now all I want to check is the console's indicator, which is on the top right. Yep, says it's charging. My USB tester is saying it's pulling. So this console charges just fine. Next is game card and SD card slot. Okay, I did not need to turn the console off to do this, but... So it played my R4 card just fine, which that doesn't necessarily mean anything. These R4 cards can be sometimes difficult to read because they don't have the little plastic grooves to help guide the pins in. It's just like the bare PCB with just pins, where on OEM carts they have these little plastic grooves that'll help guide the pins in. But on the two R4 cards I have, they are all like that. So for the game card slot, I'm just going to test a little stack of shovelware games. I all assume to be in like what I would assume to be just like normal condition for what a game card should be. Some much better than others, which is kind of exactly what I want. Some are more worn than others. So what I'll do, I guess I'll start with Bejeweled 3 because it's in my hand. I'll plug it in like normal. Before I do that, let me put the battery cover back on, because that'll become relevant here in a second. So let me grab Bejeweled 3, drop it, then I'll put it in like normal. Just click it in, let go. Pops up immediately. Then what I'll do is I'll put a little bit of pressure on it, not enough to engage the game card slot, but just sort of like just a light pressure on it, and then just shift it side to side. What I'm looking for is if it disappears, or if it blips in and out, which it doesn't. Then I'll give it a couple good whacks to see if it vanishes. And basically what I'm testing for is if it does blip out like that. In the games that I've tested, if you're actively playing the game and it disconnects just for that like fraction of a second, your whole entire console will just shut off. Which, when you're playing a game, that can suck. Next we'll have Wonder Pets. Click in normal, pops up immediately. Good. Dog Whisperer. Nothing. Okay. Oh. Shift it side to side. So that could have just been an anomaly. No, it's doing it again. So if I push in Dog Whisperer just a little more. That could be entirely because of this game card. It might not be the console. I'll put that one kind of aside here. Pampered Pets. I think this one takes a second to pop up. Yep. Shifting side to side. Still good. Okay. Go, Diego, go. SpongeBob. And then Crafting Mama, which I think is my best condition card. So if it has problems reading Crafting Mama, then that's a real sign of problem. So I'm not sure why this card took a second to pop up. It could just be this card, because all of these other cards had no problem. And now, like, maybe there's just like a little bit of gunk on the card immediately. So I'm not going to pin this console as a fail, because I did not see any other signs that the game card slot is wrong, or like bad. I'll give it a quick cleaning. But I am just going to put that on my notes. Just trouble reading. One game at first. And this is test 1, which I am going to pass. So I will just do a quick cleaning on the game card slot. It's benign. It'll also give me a chance to clean this card, just in case it was this game card in particular. So what I do is just put a little bit of rubbing alcohol on the pins, and then just take it in and out of the console several times. The rubbing alcohol will kind of mess with the mechanism of the game, of the DSi, but once it dries, it goes back to normal. Like sometimes it won't fully eject the card, it just kind of holds it in like that. But my main goal is just to really clean off those pins inside. Obviously, if you were to do this, do it with a game card you don't care about. Not only does it add unnecessary wear to the pins, the rubbing alcohol also transfers over to the label. Which I haven't noticed anything with these test cards, because I've been pouring a lot of rubbing alcohol on them, but it would just loosen the adhesive and maybe discolor it. I just wouldn't recommend it. Oh, right, okay. So technically my last test is Wi-Fi, but the only way I can connect this to the Wi-Fi is connecting to a hotspot on my phone, which I'm currently using as my camera. I've never had a console fail. I don't do anything online with these things. I just make sure it connects to a hotspot, which it almost always does. If the Wi-Fi card was having issues, I would assume that would manifest in different ways, like the console not even turning on, because the Wi-Fi card, from what I understand, has the console's BIOS. It's kind of important. The last test I want to do is sort of a recent phenomenon that's been brought up to me, is where the console won't sit and sleep. Where even closed, it will sort of intermittently just blip in and out of sleep. Which I've never heard of before. So let me put in Mario Kart, because that's a pleasant song. And then close it. From what I've been told, even if you just lift up the lid just a little, which it is, but the hinge is giving me quite a bit of resistance, so I'm just pulling up the whole console. It'll just pop in and out of sleep. This one isn't. Then what I do is this is all kind of developing. This is all like brand new development, but turn that down a little. Put a microfiber cloth down and grab my calipers. And then what I'll do is sort of have to kind of go to the edge here. Bring the calipers down, sort of align it with the little rubber stopper for the top screen. Close my calipers, and then I'll slowly open them until the console kicks out of sleep. Okay, I'll go down until it goes back into sleep. Then I'll go up very slowly until it kicks out of sleep again. It's not very scientific, but there. It's about as objective as I can get. 24 millimeters, which is quite a bit. I think my testing range is anything from about 16 to 23 currently. I don't understand either of those ranges to be bad. Like a 16 isn't any worse than a 24. Because you're not talking about much. It's a bit, but the console has to be open this much for it to kick out of sleep. Which if your hinge is good, it shouldn't open. Like I could probably, I'm holding the console by its top shell and it's nowhere near that much. I'm having a console returned to me because of that issue, so I'm very curious to probe it as to what the issues might be. But yeah, 24 millimeters, that is a lot. So what I need to do is run another battery test on this guy now that we have the charge circuit replaced. Well, not replaced, but figured out what was wrong and fully repaired. So we'll see if it spits out another 3 hours, 50 minutes. Cool. That original reading was correct, but we'll see. I'm going to let that charge, and I suppose that's it. It passed the first test. I just have a note just saying it had troubles reading one of the games. It doesn't really matter which game it was, but I saw no problems otherwise with the game card slot. All the other games passed the sort of initial pressure testing, so I assume it's just Caesar. The Dog Whisperer game was just having a problem for whatever reason, because I was not able to verify that with another card. So yeah, that's it for this console. I'll have to go through a couple more phases of testing before I can get it up for sale.